Hi, class. Bet you weren't expecting to see me today. I know you are all going to make me very proud today, and you're going to show Miss Edelyn, our sub, what an amazing class we are. As you know, I'm going to be at teacher meetings all day, and trust me when I say I would much, much, much rather be here with you right now. But today we're going to start off our day with read aloud. So when I call your group, quietly come to the carpet. You don't need to bring anything with you. So, HOHs, come on over. If your day is C, come on over. Who is ready? Abnegation, come on over. Erudite. Dauntless, you ready? Amity, come on over. And last but not least, Candor, come on over. Okay, I'm going to ask Miss Edelyn to pause until everyone is settled and absolutely silent before I start reading. All right, everybody. We left off yesterday. Let's see. Oh, Sal was on her way to Idaho with Graham and Gramps, and there was kind of a flashback, that separate timeline that we talked about, where Gramps told us about when he was 17 years old and he first met Graham and how he kind of wooed her and won her over. And the thing that brought back that memory is they were sitting in a hotel that night, and Gramps said, "Well, it ain't our marriage bed, but it'll do." And so that reminded Sal of the story about their marriage bed and how sacred the marriage bed is to them. We're going to be introduced to a new character in this chapter, chapter 13, Bouncing Berkway. It was time to tell Graham and Gramps about Mr. Berkway. Mr. Berkway was mighty strange. I didn't know what to make of him. I thought he might have a few squirrels in the attic of his brain, if you know what I mean. He was one of those energetic teachers who loved his subject half to death and leaped about the room dramatically, waving his arms and clutching his chest and whomping people on the back. Does this remind any of you of anybody in particular? He said, "Brilliant, wonderful, and terrific." He was tall and slim, and his bushy black hair made him look wild. But he had enormous, deep brown, cow-like eyes that sparkled all over the place. And when he turned these eyes on you, you felt as if his whole purpose in life was to stand there and listen to you and you alone. Midway through the first class, Mr. Berkway asked for everyone's summer journals. He flung himself up and down the aisles, receiving the journals as if they were manna from heaven. "Wonderful," he said to each journal giver. I was worried. I had no journal. Can you turn to the person next to you right now and talk to each other about why is it that Sal wouldn't have a summer journal? Go on, talk to each other. You all made some excellent points. If I could have your attention back up here, please. If you and your partner talked about, excuse my phone, if you and your partner talked about the fact that Sal had just moved here and so therefore she wouldn't have known about a summer journal reading assignment, you are correct. On top of Mary Lou Finney's desk were 6 journals. 6. Mr. Berkway said, "Heavens, mercy, can it be Shakespeare? He counted the journals. 6. Brilliant. Magnificent. Christy and Megan, two girls who had their own club called GGP, whatever that meant, were whispering over on the other side of the room and casting malevolent looks in Mary Lou's direction. Mary Lou kept her hand on top of the journals as Mr. Berkway reached for them. In a low voice, she said, "I don't want you to read them." "What?" Mr. Berkway boomed. "Not read them?" The whole room was silent. Mr. Berkway scooped up Mary Lou's journals before she could even blink. He said, "Don't be silly. Brilliant. Thank you." Another girl, Beth Ann, looked as if she might cry. Phoebe was sending me eyebrow messages with her eyebrows that indicated that she was not too pleased either. I think they were all hoping that Mr. Berkway was not actually going to read these journals. Mr. Berkway went around the whole room, snatching journals. Alex Cheevey's journal was covered with basketball stickers. Christie's and Megan's were slathered over with pictures of male models. The cover of Ben's was a cartoon of a boy with a normal boy's head, but the arms and legs were pencils, and out of the tips of the hands and feet were dribbles of words. When he got to Phoebe's desk, Mr. Berkway lifted up her plain journal and peeked inside. Phoebe was trying to slide down in her chair. "I didn't write much," Phoebe said. "In fact, I can hardly remember what I wrote at all." Sounds to me like she wrote something juicy. By the time Mr. Berkway got to me, my heart was clobbering around so hard I thought it might leap straight out of my chest. "Deprived child," he said. "You didn't have a chance to write a journal." "I'm new." "New. How blessed," he said. "There is nothing in this whole wide world that is better than a new person." "So I didn't know about the journals." "Not to worry," Mr. Berkway said. "I'll think of something." I wasn't sure what that meant. I thought maybe he'd give me a whole lot of extra homework or something. For the rest of the day, you could see little groups of people asking each other, "Did you write about me?" I was very glad I hadn't written anything. For a while, we didn't hear any more about the journals. We had absolutely no idea all the trouble they were going to cause. Can you take a minute right now and turn to the person next to you and brainstorm what potential trouble might these journals cause? Go ahead, turn and talk. All right, can I have everyone's attention back up here? I'm sure you had lovely, lovely things to say. You can share them with me when we come back. The next chapter I'm going to read is chapter 14, The Rhododendron. Does anybody know what a rhododendron is? No? Okay, I'll tell you. A rhododendron is a bush. It's a type of plant. This should be interesting. One Saturday, I was at Phoebe's again. Her father was golfing and her mother was running errands. Mrs. Winterbottom had read out a long list to us of where she'd be in case we needed her. If we heard any noises at all, we were supposed to call the police immediately. "After you call the police," Mrs. Winterbottom said, "call Mrs. Cadaver. I think she's home today. I'm sure she'd come right over." "Oh, sure," Phoebe whispered to me. "That's about the last person I would call." Phoebe imagined that every noise was the lunatic sneaking in, or the message leaver creeping up to drop off another anonymous note. She was so jumpy that I began to feel uneasy too. After her mother left, Phoebe said, "Mrs. Cadaver works odd hours, doesn't she? Sometimes she works every night for a week, straggling home when most people are waking up. But sometimes she works during the day." "She's a nurse, so guess she works different shifts," I said. That day, Mrs. Cadaver was home, puttering around her garden. We saw her from Phoebe's bedroom window. Actually, puttering's not the best word. What she was doing was more like slogging, slashing. Mrs. Cadaver hacked branches off of trees and hauled these to the back of her lot, where she lumped them into a pile of branches that she had hacked off last week. "I told you she was as strong as an ox," Phoebe said. Next, Mrs. Cadaver slashed and sliced at a pitiful rose bush that had been trying to creep up the side of her house. Then she sheared off the tops of the hedge that borders Phoebe's yard. She moved on to the rhododendron bush, which she was poking and prodding when a car pulled into her driveway. A tall man with bushy black hair leaped out, and seeing her, he practically skipped back to where she was. They hugged each other. "Oh no," Phoebe said. The man with the bushy black hair was Mr. Birkway, our English teacher. Mrs. Cadaver pointed to the rhododendron bush and then at the axe, but Mr. Birkway shook his head. He disappeared into the garage and returned with 2 shovels. Then he and Mrs. Cadaver gouged and prodded and tunneled around in the dirt until the poor old rhododendron flopped onto its side. They lugged the bush to the opposite side of the yard where there was a mound of dirt, and they replanted the bush. "Oh, we have a visitor." "Hi. Is there